As it turns out, we have a democratic environment when it comes to technology on this planet, and you can get time on a quantum computer on AWS today. Like right now, on your laptop, you can go and get time on a quantum computer on AWS today. So if you think that a hacker is not going to be able to get access to exactly the same stuff, smaller scale, smaller impact, but no less damaging for the individual enterprise, for the individual consumer type attack, you're probably misdirecting where your energy should be.
Who says tech can't be human?
What's going on, Hacker Valley fam? Welcome back to the show. You know where we're at. We're at RSA 2025, and with me, I always bring the best guest. My guest for this episode is Michael Klieman, Global Vice President of Product Management at Entrust. Michael, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much. I'm super happy to be here.
It's always good to be back. I miss living here. You live here, so you get to kind of experience the Bay and the city every day.
I do.
When I was meeting the Entrust team originally, they said, hey, we have one guest in mind. It's Michael. You got to speak to Michael. So tell me a little bit about how you got introduced to Entrust and, a few of the things that you were working on before you started working at the company.
Sure. I most recently had started working on a startup focused on helping enterprises make the shift to post-quantum cryptography. I've spent a bunch of time in and around PKI and cryptography for most of the last 15 years, and it's a huge problem. And while I was getting that off the ground, got introduced to the folks here and couldn't possibly say no to the opportunity.
Well, you get to build something kind of from scratch. You kind of get to incubate a new idea like you would in a startup.
Yeah, I think it's the best of both worlds. The company's been around for 50 years.
Yeah.
We have some of the most substantial market-leading products in all spaces of cybersecurity or all spaces of cryptographic security, and bring those together, which is what we're doing to create something new. That's kind of the best of both worlds.
So what I wanted to talk about today is learn some more about what you're doing, especially in the cryptography space. It's an area that I'm not the strongest in. I want to talk about some breaches, if you have any breach stories, and I also want to talk about the unification of these cryptography management, because I feel like right now it's a little bit of the zoo with trying to manage your digital assets in general, let alone your cryptographic assets.
Sure. Well, happy to be here. Happy to talk about all of this. I think it's an important area. It's fascinating. It couldn't be any more important than it is today.
For sure. So where are we at right now with cryptography management, like managing our digital certificates and things of that nature?
I think we got some work to do.
Yeah.
I think there's no question about it. I think about it in terms of three particular problems. One is the threat landscape that everybody here at RSA is going to be spending all week talking about nonstop, and that really breaks down into here's a bunch of data and it is not encrypted, and the exposure risk associated with that is super high. You've got where it is encrypted, that's poor management of cryptographic keys and secrets and tokens and all the rest, leads to pretty notable breaches oftentimes. The operational challenges are growing, and we've got the shift to post-quantum cryptography. So, in terms of where do things stand today, there's a lot of work that every organization has to do, and they need more help.
I would imagine with Entrust being around for 50 years that there's big organizations, maybe even some of the biggest organizations in the world that you all help manage. When you take on a big organization, let's say they're enterprise or even Fortune 500, when you take on an organization that hasn't already been partnered with you all, what do you typically find? Like, what is the state of their inventory, or do they have a good grasp on this challenge, or where would you say it's at?
I think it's as you would expect. There's no single answer.
Okay.
It's all over the board.
Yeah.
But the thing that I've seen here, I've had the opportunity to talk to more customers here in the 9 months or so that I've been here than probably any other company that I've ever worked for. And these are the top of the top companies, Fortune 10, Fortune 50 companies, and even within large organizations with a lot of resources focused on cybersecurity. When you look at cryptographic management, they need help. They're asking for help, and they're looking for help. So I think there's despite the fact that the tooling exists, it's been around for a long time. What we see is that organizations still are struggling with getting a handle around. Here's the breadth of their use of cryptography because it underpins everything. It's to a large extent taken for granted and has not been a massive primary focus for many organizations, and that's starting to shift.
One of the areas that I know like the back of my hand, I've worked at a few companies that deal in this nature, attack surface management.
Yeah.
And we did such a good job of inventorying, our computers, our servers, even our software. But one of the areas that I didn't hear anything from our customer base was their certificates, and also anything related to cryptography. We didn't inventory. I think when companies go through this attack surface management exercise and practice, they're not necessarily looking at that specific artifact.
Yep.
Would you say that that's like typically something that you tackle after you have like a basic inventory of your physical assets, or should you try to do all of these at once?
Well, I think they go hand in hand.
Yeah.
Right. So it's interesting because I talk to customers all the time about what's their cryptographic estate, what's the cryptographic asset inventory that they have, secrets, keys, certificates, but without understanding here's the context, here's the system, here's the data, here's the identity that I am actually trying to protect with this technology.
Yeah.
It only goes so far. So looking at what is the asset that's actually being protected in concert with here's how I do it. That's probably the best way to start tackling these things, right? Because then you can focus in on here's the stuff that's highest priority in the first place.
Yeah. So is it typically a spreadsheet? Like I feel like that's probably where people start.
You would be surprised. I am still surprised. I've been around the PKI public trust side of things for a long time, and the tools exist to help customers manage certificates much more easily. And I was telling you when we were doing the preview for this session that I was talking to head of security for a major electric vehicle charging company who has hundreds of thousands of electric vehicle chargers spread throughout the country, if not the world. And each one of those devices has 5 to 10 different certificates on it. And they are managing that inventory with a spreadsheet.
Yeah.
Right. And so you think about like what's the implication of that is there's operational complexity, but there's a whole lot of operational and business continuity risk associated with that because spreadsheets are brittle.
Yes.
Right. And in cryptography, and particularly the public trust, not just public trust, but the use of certificates in general is unlike other aspects of cybersecurity where there's an expiration date on these things. And the expiration date kicks people, in the head when they are least expecting it because they're not prepared for, here's when I need to rotate a certificate.
Right. I think we often want to give up control, especially when it comes to stuff like that. We either outsource it to someone, hire a person that really specializes in that, invest in a company like Entrust, or I've seen a lot of organizations start using AWS and GCP to help manage their certificates a bit better by them issuing those certificates.
I think there's help needed all around.
Yeah.
Right. So there are from companies like us, from the hyperscalers. There are definitely solutions that make things easier, right? I think it's a matter of priority for organizations to say, hey, is cryptographic management top of the list of things that I need to pay attention to? Oftentimes the answer is no, until there is an outage, right? Until there is something that goes haywire, then people start asking questions. Until then, you might rely on here, it's just worked. However, I've been doing it up till this point, and you're not looking at proactively, what do I need to do in order to have strong management, strong security, and that's like every aspect of cybersecurity is, sometimes it takes the problem to get people to focus in on, let's do it better.
Yeah. Speaking of outages, what would you say is the top 1 or 2 risks for not having a grasp on things like your certificates?
Well, the top 2 are, one is there's actually a breach of some form. There is a hack of some form. And so examples there are poorly managed keys used for certificates used for code signing. I've seen time and again these things get compromised. The private keys get compromised. Those keys are used to sign malware. And to sign code with, legitimate code with malware injected into it. And the organizations who are, who own those certificates and who own those applications, they have a big problem on their hands in terms of undoing that. So you have problems like that on the one hand. You have the operational side on the other, which is, what we're talking about is, hey, certificate expires and I wasn't expecting it, and production system is offline. Online banking is no longer available for my customers for the hour or 2 hours or how long it takes for somebody to go and replace that certificate. Why did that happen? Is because there weren't strong enough management practices in place.
I feel like you can really hurt your reputation a little bit doing that, because when you pull up on Chrome or whatever your favorite browser is, it has a warning and it says that someone may be stealing your information or listening in.
I mean, I think the Chrome actually drove a lot of the change in the market years ago, right? It used to be when you wanted to think about improving security and improving, here's the brand that you've got and what you're projecting to customers, then you would encrypt your site. When you would use SSL to control the front end to your web applications.
Right.
A number of years ago, it's probably 7-8 years ago at this point, they changed the default. And instead of assuming that that security was an improvement, and you see the padlock in the browser or you see the green bar in the browser, assume security and start warning people when you're going to a site where there isn't security, and that's the new norm.
And
right?
now they make it a little difficult to continue to a website that has an outdated certificate.
If as a user, if you don't stop and hit pause when you see the warning, you have to ask yourself why. All right. And by and large, I see myself as a reasonably informed consumer when it comes to going to a website, and I will stop and I will say, hey, what the heck is going on here? And oftentimes, most of the time, probably not continue and come back another day when things have been fixed.
I have to jump in for a second to share some details about our sponsor for this episode, Entrust. In a world with over 75 billion connected devices and 175 zettabytes of data, protecting your organization's critical assets is paramount. And as Q-Day, the day that quantum computers will be capable of breaking traditional cryptography, is fast approaching, strong cryptographic management practices are essential. I'd like to introduce you to Entrust Cryptographic Security Platform, an end-to-end management solution offering visibility, automation, and seamless orchestration of of cryptographic security, including lifecycle management over keys, certificates, and secrets with an HSM root of trust. It ensures protection over vital data, systems, identities, and connected devices. The Entrust platform simplifies operational complexity, reins in cryptographic sprawl, and ensures your organization is quantum safe. Are you ready to step into the future of cryptographic security? Learn more by visiting entrust.com/CSP. Thank you, Entrust, for sponsoring this episode. Now let's jump back into it.
So when you're in that spreadsheet way of life, how do you update it? Like, I've tried to create fancy automations that connect to Google Sheets and even Microsoft Spreadsheet, and it never turned out well. So is it a person, or do they typically have automation that tries to update the list?
I think there's an easy answer to that question. If you're you're starting with a spreadsheet as here's how I'm managing my keys and my certs, your automation is not first of mind, top of mind for you. If you're at the point where you are thinking about automation, then you're thinking about what's the tooling that I need to have in place in order to make that easy.
Yeah. So all of this, I feel like, is going to help with this post-quantum world that maybe we'll see sometime soon, maybe not. What are your thoughts on the feasibility of quantum? Is it something that you think is coming up soon, or you think it's far out into the future?
So I get to say, here's an area that I'm not an expert in, and that is I'm not a quantum physicist.
Yeah.
I can read the news, though. And what the news says to me is that every day, every week, there is another breakthrough in the underlying technologies that are enabling quantum computers to get faster and to get, to become more viable, from a practical compute perspective. And with that, with every passing day, the risk is growing, right? What is that risk? That risk is that we'll have a cryptographically relevant quantum computer that can actively break today's encryption. We know it's going to happen. Is it going to happen within the next 5 years? If you ask the experts in the field, the answer is they don't know, but the probability that it is going to happen in the next 5 years is greater than it was last year. And that's the answer every year, is the probability that we're going to have a problem sooner rather than later. That probability is going up. So if you're in the business of trying to protect data, the question is when is soon enough for me to start working on this? And that's looking at the problem space of how to prevent a problem when there is a cryptographically relevant quantum computer. Right. It's ignoring the fact that a harvest now, decrypt later attack is something that you should be concerned about today. It is an APT, an advanced persistent threat, effectively, that we're all living with today. And do you have data today that you're going to want to have protected in 5 years, in 10 years? Right. If the answer is yes, you need to start doing something today.
At least the management, at a minimum, but probably changing some things and seeing where you can actually flex. Because I would imagine that part of understanding if you're ready to change your encryption standards is knowing what it's going to affect.
There is no question, and I was just at lunch with a big payment processor, and we were talking about this, and these are huge challenges, right? They're the work that's involved is updating code, it's updating protocols, it's updating algorithms, it is getting updates from all of your third-party vendors. There's so much to do here. The question is, have you even started, right? Where does starting begin? Start with understand what's the surface area that I've got to touch, right? Yeah. And that is, do I have a handle on the cryptographic inventory across my enterprise? And that cryptographic inventory is the spreadsheets that I've got for managing certificates. It's all of the different applications that I've got that are using keys somewhere in the application to protect some data. Yeah. Do I have, as a security leader, Do I have visibility to, here's what the entire surface area is? Do I know, going back to what you were asking before, do I know what the assets are? What's the data? What are the systems? What are the identities that those cryptographic assets are protecting? Because that's what I need in order to prioritize where do I even begin.
Yeah.
Right. So just the act of getting that, discovering what's the inventory that I have in the first place, starting to look at what are the assets that are being protected. Now I can say, okay, well, this is the stuff that has to change, and this is the stuff that has to change first.
Right.
Getting to that point for most organizations is a big lift right now. And that's where organizations should be focused right now, is get a handle on that while working with all of your vendors to say, hey, where are you in terms of PQ support? Because I'm dependent on you and the upgrades that you're making for me to be able to do anything.
I would imagine, even if quantum is far away, like it's still important to be able to update to a new cryptography standard. And I say that because it might not be accessible to consumers or even big companies, but I would imagine that governments have a huge opportunity when it comes to the benefits of quantum computing, especially from attacking an attack perspective. Like there's already been leaks from Edward Snowden in the past that showed that NSA had capabilities to decrypt some SSH traffic.
Yeah.
And I would imagine that if someone were to get a quantum computer, it would be the US or China.
That's right.
And we would probably deploy it and use it to advance like our countries, but also to get an advantage over other countries.
I don't think there's any question about where the risk is going to come first, and that is absolutely right from a nation state level. And you hit the primary contenders. The U.S. and China are the places to look at first. Jen Easterly last year was talking about this here at RSA, and this is a real threat. Right, China has been found out and discovered already hacking into critical infrastructure.
Yep.
Right. For what reason? Well, they laid it out here a year ago. Right. Is basically, if China was going to make a move on Taiwan, first thing that they're going to do in parallel is cyber attack on U.S. critical infrastructure, which affects you and me. Right, most people don't care about what's going on with TMSC, and they do care about what's happening with their public utilities.
Yeah,
and
water is key. Water is life.
Water is life. There's a power outage right now today in Barcelona and parts of Spain and Portugal. It's like You look at what's the impact to people when the systems, everything that we take for granted, goes down. That's what's at risk when you're talking about a nation state attacker. But I was talking to my wife about this just the other day. Make no mistake about it. It's not just China who's going to have access to this. Once these machines exist, once they have the ability to do some damage, as it turns out, we have a democratic environment when it comes to technology on this planet, and you can get time on a quantum computer on AWS today. Like right now, on your laptop, you can go and get time on a quantum computer on AWS today. So if you think that a hacker is not going to be able to get access to exactly the same stuff, to have a much less, smaller scale, smaller impact, but no less damaging for the individual enterprise, for the individual consumer type attack, you're probably misdirecting where your energy should be.
Right, and one of the things that I thought was further away, and it was a pleasant surprise that it's right here in front of us, is AI. I think that AI could ultimately help us build solutions like quantum computers, or help us apply the math, like Shor's factoring algorithm, which helps you decrypt. Well, which would you could predict the prime numbers for the cryptography.
I mean, I think what you're hitting on is, can AI be used to help us accelerate development of quantum computers? The answer is there's a lot of work going into that field. right? And if the answer is yes, then the answer to your other question of, hey, is it likely to happen? Are we likely to have a cryptographically relevant quantum computer sooner rather than later? The answer is also yes.
Yeah.
Right. So, this is also, again, the conversation I was having at lunch today. It's the black swan event of November of 2022 is when the first preview for ChatGPT was released. And suddenly the world went from, hey, AI is a thing that I'm kind of aware of, to everybody has access to it.
Yeah.
And look at where we are, a year and a half later, and 2.5 years later. This is the risk on betting that advances in quantum computing are going to be far off in the future. Because if it happens sooner, we've got a lot of work to do in order to upgrade the systems that we are using today, and the algorithms in particular that we've been relying on literally for 50 plus years.
With cryptography and being a previous security architect, I didn't want to touch crypto. They always say don't roll your own crypto. Use existing technologies that have been battle tested. But for me, I want to push that off to someone else completely. And you said that, hey, we actually have something that unifies many different tools all into one place.
Yeah, so this is something I'm super proud of in the time that I've been here at Entrust, and really what got me to come to the company is when you look at the problem space, the increasing threats, the increasing operational challenges, the shift to post-quantum, the fact is that today organizations deal with disparate tools spread throughout the organization for key management, for certificate management, for PKI, for certificate lifecycle management, compliance, their HSMs, it's all over. What we've done is, and we're showcasing here, we just announced last week, is we've brought together our market-leading PKI, certificate lifecycle management, key management, compliance management, and HSMs into a cryptographic security platform. Something to help organizations tackle these challenges of today, do it in a way where they have enterprise-wide visibility and control over that cryptographic asset base that they have, no matter where it lives inside the organization, along with the tooling to help the teams that are hands-on keys be able to take action and to drive improvement over time.
Love it. So how does it feel like, to bring this to life, especially after just 9 months? That's pretty quick.
It's amazing. It's what I was saying right before we started videoing is for a company this size, for a company that's been around this long, it's pretty amazing how willing we've been as an organization to overcome whatever the organizational antibodies are and DNA is, to actually move faster and to say, hey, look, this is what our customers need. This is what the market needs, and to do something different. And the feedback that we've been getting from analysts, from our partners, from our customers has been amazing.
A lot of security companies come here because they want to speak to security leaders and CISOs especially.
Yeah.
What is one data point that you think every CISO should be tracking for 2025?
I think there's a simple question, and that is, do you have a plan? Do you have a plan related to the shift to post-quantum? Right? The largest financial institution customers that we have are now at the point where this is not science fiction and this is not a future thing. This is the number one or number two cybersecurity priority for the next couple of years for these organizations. So for the CISOs that I'm talking to here, is like, do you even have a plan to address this, is the question that I would ask.
Great. That's a great question to ask. Do you have a plan? It's always fun until you find out that you don't.
Yeah, well, and this is super hard, right? You said it a second ago, is when it came to crypto, this is the sort of thing where you would say, I want somebody else to do it. This is where, for us, we're in the business of building the tooling, but there's a huge there's a huge skill set problem, and this is where our partners come into play, and it's something that every organization really needs to think about, because when you liken the shift to post-quantum to Y2K, problem there was, are there enough people who know COBOL? Back when it was a Y2K problem.
Yeah.
Today, it's a question of, are there enough people who understand cryptography inside your organization? And I can guarantee you the answer is no.
Definitely not.
Right? It's definitely not. And so this is why you need to have a plan. Recognize it. How much work do we have ahead of us? When are we going to do it? How are we going to schedule that? Who's going to do it? Where do we need help? And how quickly are we able to get that help?
I would recommend everybody to check out Entrust. That's why we're speaking today. I wanted to learn more, especially get my chops up in the crypto space. Big shout outs to Entrust for also sponsoring this episode. If you haven't done so already, be sure to go to the show notes or description wherever you're listening or watching to check and learn more about Entrust. Michael, thank you again for sitting down with me, taking some time. I know you have a busy RSA, but hopefully we get to do it again sometime.
I'd love to.
Yes.
This is fantastic.
And with that, we will see everyone next time.